Well, it is time to count down to the college football playoff. I hope everybody's doing well today. And on today's edition of the Stingray Show, we are going to be joined by the one and only Tony Barnhart, and then, of course, Cecil Hurt to start talking about the playoff matchups. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as Heath and myself get you ready for all of the college football news here only on the Stingray Show.
The Dogs and Stingray are coming for you!
This is Stephen Ray, a.k.a. Stingray, coming to you live from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Good afternoon, Mr. Feinbaum. Stingray here, and I'm about to shoot the bull with you like all the Auburn students do down at Auburn.
Worst defense ever!
So without further ado, here is the biggest Alabama going for the field goal. The kick is up. It is away. It is no good. Chris Davis bringing it out of the end zone. Oh, he's got blockers. Chris Davis up the sideline. Here he goes. Here we go, guys. Dobbs back to pass. Launching the ball. Jennings. He's got it. Jennings. He's got it. Touchdown, Tennessee. They shocked the Dogs in Sanford Stadium. Are you kidding me? My God almighty. What an epic way for the Tennessee-Georgia rivalry to end this game. What a play. Wow. Welcome inside another exciting edition of the Stingray Show, everybody. I am your host, Stephen Ray, and let me go on ahead and pull up my co-host, Heath Hopkins. Heath, how are you doing today, my friend?
Stephen, I am doing absolutely wonderful. I'm overfilled with Christmas cheer. I'm ready for the new year.
Yes, absolutely. So without further ado, obviously, I believe it is this Friday, we have the semifinal playoff games between Alabama, Notre Dame, and then, of course, Ohio State and Clemson. So without further ado, let's go on ahead and bring in Mr. College Football himself, Mr. Tony Barnhart. Mr. Barnhart, how are you doing today, sir?
Guys, I'm doing well. Happy New Year.
Yes, Happy New Year. Well, let me just go on ahead and ask you, Tony, did the committee get the best four teams, and did they do it right, in your opinion?
And, Stephen, those are two entirely different questions. Okay? Did they pick the best four teams? Probably. Okay.
Yeah.
Did they do it correctly? No, they did not, in my opinion. I did not have Ohio State in my Final Four simply because with having played only 6 games, yes, I did not think it was fair for them to be in the playoff with teams that had played 10, 11 games. So as a result, I put Texas A&M, whose only loss was to Alabama. I put them in my Final Four. But did the committee pick the best 4 teams? Yeah, they probably did.
You know, Tony, me and Stephen have talked about this with several of our guests and on the phone with each other. There is a difference between the 4 best teams and the 4 deserving teams. I definitely think A&M is a deserving team, but with your vote, like you just said, you had A&M as your number 4. I had A&M as well. Is A&M deserving, or is Ohio State better?
I think Ohio State's a better team when their quarterback, Justin Fields, is playing well. He didn't play particularly well the other day against Northwestern in the Big 12 championship game. That's why I make the distinction. I don't have any problem with Ohio State being one of the best 4 teams in the country, because they probably are. But the talent they've got, now they're not as good as they were a year ago.
Right.
But they are a very, very good football team. And had they played 9 or 10 games, they would probably still be undefeated. Because quite honestly, the Big Ten's not very good this year. Yes. But again, to me, it's a separate question. Is Ohio State one of the best 4 teams in the country? Yes, and that's why the committee put them in there. Should they have been in with only 6 games over teams that have played 9 or 10 games? No.
Right.
And that's just the way that I feel about it.
Yes.
We feel the same way.
Well, can you go on ahead and kind of talk to us about the Alabama-Notre Dame rivalry? Because there were some pretty nasty and tight games, and it was a bitter rival back in the 70s. What makes that game so I guess you would say, bitter for Alabama fans?
Well, it's two national programs. I mean, obviously Notre Dame and Alabama are national programs. They recruit nationally. And when they play each other, people pay attention. Now, the last time when they played in 2012, I was there. I was on the field before the game, and I looked at Alabama's team, and I looked at Notre Dame's team, and I told the guy standing next to me, I said, "This is going to get ugly in a hurry." Now, that was then, but this is now.
Yes.
Notre Dame has improved their program dramatically. Brian Kelly has over the last 4 years. These Notre Dame teams are much better than the one that played Alabama in 2012 because they're bigger, faster, stronger, and that's what Brian Kelly knew he had to do. So is this game going to be any closer than the one in 2012? Maybe not, because guys, I got a news flash for you. Alabama's really good.
Yes.
Tony, go back to the committee and the craziness of all that. Do you think, I won't ask you to speak on the behalf of committee, but in your mind, do you think that the committee did not want to see another blowout between Alabama and A&M, and they thought a blowout between A&M or between Bama and Notre Dame was better? I mean, what do you think their thought process was of taking Notre Dame and leaving out A&M and putting them against Bama?
When I went to bed on Saturday night championship, I was convinced that Alabama, Clemson, and Notre Dame were in, guys. I'm telling you, the argument did not come down to Notre Dame and Texas A&M. The argument came down to Texas A&M and Ohio State. That's what the argument for the fourth spot was. Notre Dame was in because they had, even though they got beat bad by Clemson in the ACC championship game, they had beaten Clemson when Clemson was number one. They had the best win of the, so just people. I think Notre Dame was in, and so the argument ultimately was: do we put in Ohio State or do we put in Texas A&M? I think at the end of the day, you got a Big Ten champion who was undefeated, who didn't get to play 3 games because of COVID, and they ultimately sat down and said, "Okay, who is the better team?" And they said Ohio State's the better team. Now that was not the way that I would have decided it, but that's what I believe the committee did.
What about Notre Dame? Do they even have a shot in this game?
You mean like to win?
Yeah.
No.
After the coin toss. After the coin toss. Yeah.
Here's the thing, is that in order to even have a chance against Alabama, you got to score about 45. It falls somewhere in there, 40, 41, 45. That's just to have a chance. Notre Dame cannot score 45 points. Yeah. Against an Alabama defense that's getting better and better and better with each game. Now we'll see if Alabama turns it over or something happens. But the way that Mac Jones has been playing, the way that Devontae Smith has been playing, the way that Najee Harris has been playing, and oh, by the way, they've probably got the best offensive line in the country. There's just too much Alabama in this game.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I completely 100% agree with you. You know, we make a joke here on the show all the time, Tony, that if we'll take Notre Dame and Alabama. If Notre Dame doesn't win the coin toss, they're not going to win anything for the rest of the day. No. And I feel that strongly about this playoff game. And that's also been my argument with when people are like, oh, we need to expand the playoffs. It's like, no, that we have boring playoff games as it is now. The number 4 team rarely gives the number 1 team a fight at all. We do not need to expand this and make boring football. We need better football, and I just totally disagree that we need to expand the playoff. Your thoughts on expanding it?
I will say this, Heath. I've come around. My thinking is my thinking on this issue. I'm not ready to commit to an 18 playoff, but I want to have a conversation about it. There's a lot of questions that I have. My issue now is that with the way that things have gone. Well, here's the stat. I looked this up the other day. So this is the 7th year of the college football playoff. So 28 bids have been extended, 4 every year for 7 years. Of those 28 bids that have been extended to the college football playoff, 22 of those 28 have gone to 5 different schools, and that's it. Okay.
Yeah.
To me, that concentration of power, while do you get the best teams? Yeah, you do. But my concern is you go back and look at recruiting rankings, whatever they're worth. The fact of the matter is the elite players coming out of high school want to go where they think they have a chance to be in the playoffs. I would feel the same way. Of course, you want to play in the playoffs, but there's a shrinking number of teams that can actually get there. I mean, it's Ohio State, Clemson, Alabama, Oklahoma, and Notre Dame has got, and those 5 schools have 22 of the 28 bids, and 6 other schools have 1 each. And my concern is that for the overall health of the game, the recruiting stuff is getting concentrated into just a handful of schools, and they have a chance. And again, I'm not ready to commit to an 18 playoff. Somebody's got to tell me exactly how it's going to look and who's going to be in it and what are you going to do with the group of 5. I got a ton of questions, but for the first time, I'm willing to have that conversation.
Yes.
We had Tom Luganbill on last week, and Tom brought up an excellent point. Tom said, let's give the first 2 teams a bye, the number 1 and number 2 teams a bye, and let's have a play-in game, and let's extend it 2 more teams. Let's have 6 teams in the playoff, and 3 and 6 will play, 4 and 5 will play, the winners will play 1 and 2. I thought that was an excellent idea. Do you think we'll ever see something like that happen?
I think there's a chance, but my sense from talking to people is if you're going to make a change, you're not going to make an incremental change. You're going to go from 4 to 8. You negotiate the television contract to something huge, when it's ready to go. But no, I like Tom's idea. I've heard him talk about that before, and it gets more teams involved. We still got to figure out what we're going to do with the group of 5. We've got to figure something out there, because we're going to have this argument every single year. And if Cincinnati beats Georgia in the Peach Bowl, just like UCF beating Auburn in the Peach Bowl, we have got to have it. I don't know what we can do about the group of 5, but we got to think about it. We got to talk about it.
Do you think Cincinnati will have a parade at Disneyland?
Why not? Why not? I will say this: a big part of picking bowl games is figuring out who really wants to be there.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yes.
And I can promise you this: I think Georgia will play well.
Yeah.
They're only an hour away from campus. This is going to be the senior day they never had because their game with Vanderbilt got canceled. So I think Georgia will be motivated to play. I think Cincinnati's got a lot to prove, and one of the better defenses in college football. I think they're number 8 in total defense. So it'll be the best defense that JT Daniels has seen, the quarterback at Georgia. It'll be the best defense that he has seen as a starting quarterback.
Well, speaking of the other bowl games, what is one matchup that is intriguing to you and that you're willing and wanting to watch?
Well, I was hoping it was going to be the Orange Bowl, North Carolina and Texas A&M, and it still may be. It still may be a good game. The problem is North Carolina's 2 top running backs who had combined for like 2,300 yards have decided to opt out of the game and not play, and that's going to make it really difficult. Mike Brown's got a great quarterback in Sam Howell. I think Texas A&M will go into that game because they got something they want to prove. They want to win. And Jimbo wants to go straight to that microphone after they win and say, see, you should have put us in. I told you.
Yes.
I told you. And the other game is the other semifinal, Clemson and Ohio State. That one's got a little juice to it with the comments of the 2 head coaches and Dabo voting the Buckeyes 11 in his coaches poll. So that'll be fun. That'll give a little juice.
Tony, here's a fun question. Have you believed anything Dabo has said since voting them number 11? I heard that the excuse yesterday, I believe it was Yahoo Sports, that said, I've only did that because they didn't play that many games and this and that. Is anybody buying this?
Well, listen, Dabo's keeping it fun, okay? He just put them down there at 11, so that's where I think they ought to be, and that'll get Ryan Day fired up and the players. Last year, like you remember last year's game, that was a chippy game for the most part. Ohio State felt they got hosed on a couple of calls there, at the end. So I think that, plus the winner gets to go play for the national championship.
Yes.
The winner gets to go play Alabama. Oh boy. So let's see how that turns out.
Well, Tony, real quick before we let you go, how do you feel that the coaching search down at Auburn, how did you feel that played out? And do you feel like that Brian Harsin will do a better job than Gus Malzahn did down there?
Well, first of all, coaching searches at a place like Auburn, if you don't have the guy ready to go when you fire the other guy, if you don't have the other guy ready to go, by definition, it's going to look like a chaotic process. There's no good way. If you don't have your guy ready to go when you fire the other guy, because people are going to write stuff, and some of it's going to be true, and some of it's not going to be true. But even the stuff that's not true makes you look like you don't know what you're doing. So no, and here's the thing with Brian Harsin. I thought they should have brought Gus back, but I understand why they didn't. But here's the thing with Brian Harsin is a good football coach.
Right.
He's a good football coach. If you go, his record is something like 69-19 at Boise State. So the guy knows how to coach ball. What we don't know is, can he assemble a staff that knows how to handle the hand-to-hand combat that is recruiting in the SEC. He's never recruited on this level. It's different. I've talked to a lot of coaches who have come into the league, and when we talk after about a year, when I talk to them about recruiting, they are shaking their head going, oh my goodness, I had no idea. And that's what Brian Harsin, he's got to surround himself by people who are not only good football coaches, but who have relationships in the South. Because Auburn's recruiting has always been somewhere around, 10, 11, 12. It's not like they've been awful. And Auburn is Auburn. I mean, Auburn is Auburn. They got a great tradition. Guys want to go there. It's in the SEC. And so, but the key is, can Brian Harsin hire guys to surround him that know how to recruit in the SEC?
And one final question from me. Obviously, with the huge win that Liberty and Hugh Freeze had over Coastal Carolina, do you kind of feel like that Hugh Freeze will go somewhere else, or do you think he's still at Liberty in 2021?
I think he's still there in 2021. I think all the opportunities that would have interested him, specifically the Auburn opportunity, I think since that has gone by the wayside, sometimes, when you got a good situation, you need to sort of sit tight until the right job comes along. Right. And I think that's what it was a great season for them. They're one block kick away from being undefeated this year.
Yes.
And so that's it was just an incredible season for Liberty.
Tony, let me ask you real quick. Outside of Nick Saban, who are the top 3 coaches in the SEC not named Nick Saban?
Well, I think you got to put Dan Mullen in there somewhere. I mean, what he has done, you got to put Kirby Smart in there. Kirby Smart has come in, and the Georgia people fuss about this. Kirby Smart, here's a stat for you. If Georgia beats Cincinnati in the bowl game, the senior class at Georgia will have 44 wins. That ties the most in school history. They've only had 2 other senior classes in the history of the school to win 44. They've been to 3 out of 4 SEC championship games in that class. They have within one play, they've won 1 SEC championship and were 1 play away from winning a national championship. So Kirby Smart has got to be in there somewhere. I think you got to include Jimbo Fisher in there. People forget, this is only his 3rd year at Texas A&M. Yeah. Seems like he's been there forever. And for them, in his 3rd year, to get them in this place now, I think it shows a lot of look, the coaching in the SEC is really good. But those are 3 guys that would have to be in there. And Saban, of course, is a cut above everybody else.
Now, we've always asked you for a story on the show. You've shared a Steve Spurrier story. I've asked you about Larry Munson. You've shared a story about Larry before. And by the way, you've got to write that book that you can't write. You have to find a way to write that book.
Yeah, that was That was the other version of the Larry Munson book.
Yeah, maybe you do it like Mark Twain and say, 100 years after my death, this book will be published.
I'm going to have to be gone before I can let that one through.
Let's find a way for that book to be released, whether it be several years after you've left this earth or not. But we've got to find a way for that book. But with that being said, what is one of your favorite coaching stories of all time, a personal coaching story that you love telling at parties and such?
Well, I always tell people one of the interesting things that happened to show you, because people will talk about Nick Saban. Well, he doesn't have a sense of humor, and he doesn't do, he didn't get along. I said, I'm sitting in his office one day, and I just say out of the blue, I said, somebody told me that you recruit to prototypes. In other words, you believe your left tackle should be this big, you believe your outside linebacker should be that big, and all that. And I ask him the question, then all of a sudden he gets out of his chair, he walks over to the whiteboard and starts drawing up formations and says, this player needs to be here and this player needs to be there. I learned this from Belichick and all that. I think he's one of the most misunderstood people, because he took all of that time so that I would understand, rather than him just giving me some ballpark answer that kind of halfway dealt with the question. He gets up there on the whiteboard and starts drawing out the whole thing so that I understand. Another time we had lunch in his office, and I asked him a question about a particular formation. I was eating a sandwich, he was eating a salad, and he takes out the salad dressing bottles, and puts them in formation with the salt and pepper shaker. He said, let me show you what I used to do to drive Belichick crazy. And he would move the stuff around. So that's the fun part of this job is see coaches come out of their character a little bit different than people think he is.
That's something that I've never thought of, but it's an odd question I'm about to ask you. What do coaches usually eat in their office with reporters like you, Tony? What's the norm of what guys eat?
Saban is a big salad guy. He does, as you all know, plays a lot of basketball, does a lot of stuff to stay in shape. But I've seen guys do everything from that to Chick-fil-A. I know a lot of coaches who are big Chick-fil-A guys, because I'm a big Chick-fil-A guy. So, yeah, but they like to eat in the office. Some schools have, now that everybody has a dining hall that runs 24 hours a day, they just send an assistant down there to make them a plate. So.
Tony, my last question for you is, if you could change anything in college football, what would you change?
Oh, I changed the overtime rule. I don't like the overtime rule. I never have, because you start on the 25-yard line, which means you're playing for a field goal. To me, you should have to make at least one first down to win the game. So I'd like to change the overtime rule where you get your possession on the 40-yard line instead of the 25. So you've got to make at least a first down to kick a field goal to win the game.
And Tony, real quick, a friend of the show, Brandon Marcello, just tweeted that he got word that the Texas Bowl between Arkansas and TCU has been canceled.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, so what's that? 3? Tennessee had to opt out. Missouri had to opt out. It's just a fact of life.
Carolina.
Yep. South Carolina. As you do more and more testing, and we saw this, and look, they told us the whole season, hey guys, when it starts getting cold, it's going to be hard to finish this season.
Yes.
So things had gone so smoothly. The fact that the SEC played 68 out of 70 regular season games, that's a phenomenal accomplishment. And so I'm not to answer your question, Steve. I'm not surprised that happened, because as more and more here we're sitting here today, Tuesday, and another set of tests are going to happen before this weekend. So no surprise.
Yes. Well, Tony, look, man, thank you so much for your time, and hopefully we can do it again soon.
Okay, guys. Happy New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
Thank you, Tony.
You bet.
Man, I got to tell you, that is extremely disappointing about the Texas Bowl between TCU and Arkansas, because that was going to be a really good game, and Arkansas needed to get off to a good start and have something good to feel about going into the offseason, because they dropped their last two to Missouri and then, of course, to Alabama. So they really needed something to look forward to going into the offseason.
Stephen, I don't know the answer to this. Maybe Cecil could give us the answer. And if I was thinking, I would ask Tony about it. But, we saw the SEC get flexible with their schedule and move things around and push games back. We've seen the NFL push games back a day or two if needed. I just don't understand, why can't we push this bowl back another week? I understand if one team is already at the hotel and they don't want to stay there at the hotel for another week, and while one team could practice and the other team couldn't. I get all that. But surely we could find a way to say, hey, we're going to play the bowl game on January 15th. Send everybody home. We'll bring you back.
Yes.
And even if they have to bring them back the day before the game, great. But I just don't understand why we can't be flexible with these bowl games and move them around a little bit. I would love to know the answer on that one.
So once again, that bowl game right down there has been canceled because of COVID issues, and there is more to come from that, coming from our good friend of the show, Brandon Marcello.
Yeah.
So that's really unfortunate. And by the way, since it's canceled, who do you think ultimately would have won that game?
I don't know. Arkansas have been a little inconsistent there toward the end, but I don't know if Arkansas is going to be completely healthy. I was reading an article late last night that Felipe Franks was not completely healthy. I don't know if he was going to go in this game or not. If he was not going to go, KJ Jefferson, the phenomenal kid from North Panola High School, which is not too far from my house, I called several of his games in high school. Phenomenal talent, great arm. I'd like to think he would perform good. He performed phenomenal against Missouri when he filled in for Felipe Franks. Had an excellent game. Matter of fact, we thought he had a game-winning drive, and then Mizzou came back and got a score there at the very end of the game. So I think that would have been a close game. I would give the edge to TCU, but if I was making a prediction, I would pick Arkansas. I'm not picking against the Hogs.
Yes. But like I said, that game has been canceled. So unfortunately, that's that. All right, man. Well, real quick, while we wait on our next guest, what were your thoughts about some of the games over this past weekend and this past week, which we actually got to watch?
That Coastal Carolina Liberty game, that was a really fun bowl.
Yes.
I hate that we didn't have that as a regular season game. So many missed opportunities in 2020, but so many great opportunities came up. Just like Tony mentioned just a second ago, Liberty a blocked field goal away from being undefeated. That would have been a phenomenal story. The Chanticleers, a blocked field goal away from being undefeated. How crazy it that both teams have their one loss on a crazy blocked field goal. So it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of this bowl season plays out. I just hope we get the bowl games. I'm kind of worried that we're not going to get many in, and I'm even worried about the playoffs, Stephen.
Yes.
Of kids testing positive and things like that. Hey, Stephen, crazy question. You living in there in Tuscaloosa, I hope you know the answer to this, but did the Alabama players get to go home for Christmas due to the playoff?
I don't know that question. I don't know the answer. I have no clue.
I know some of these bowls, they didn't. Of course, the football season got extended into mid-December and everything else. So I didn't know if some of these players had to ride through things. I know Coach Drink, Eli Drinkowitz at Missouri, sent his players home and said for mental health reasons. They've had a 21 weeks of football, 21 weeks, Stephen.
Yes.
Of football. And he said these guys needed to go home. And, of course, now it looks like their ball game is canceled due to the virus breaking out on the team and things like that. So, a lot of people did send their teams home. I know Mike Leach sent his team home. I believe Lane Kiffin did as well. But Yeah, are some of these guys going to come back and test positive? Yes, they are. We know they are. That's just where we are with this virus right now. That's going to happen on every single team. If they went home or not, people are testing positive. That's just what is going on right now nationwide. But it's sad to see that everything's being moved. I just wish we had some flexibility in our bowls. We're like, hey, guys, we're going to play the bowl games in mid-January. I know it's usually New Year's. We're just going to push it back to mid-January. I think everybody would be okay with that.
Did you happen to watch any of the games on Christmas Day?
Gosh, that seems like forever ago. Who played Christmas Day? And I'll tell you.
Marshall Buffalo.
Watched a little bit of it. I did.
That was a really good football game. And what were your thoughts on it?
I didn't get to watch much of it. I watched some of it. I didn't have a rooting interest either way. I was kind of, I'm always going to pull for the underdog there
Yes.
a little bit, but and how can you not be a fan of either one of these schools? I mean, Buffalo trying to make some things happen, and of course, everyone was a Marshall fan a couple of years ago, about 10 years ago or so from the movie. But, I'm just glad we're getting bowl games in, Stephen.
Yes.
I'm not staying awake at night, but we're not getting any bowl games. Let me rephrase that. The SEC is starting to lose out on a lot of bowl games, and those are the ones I'm really looking forward to and wanting to watch.
And Buffalo actually came back and won this football game. And there you can see down there they are celebrating with the Camilla Bowl trophy. That was a great win for them. They are in the bowl down in Montgomery, Alabama. And by the way, that was the first bowl game played on Christmas Day since 2003.
Wow. Look at that. I watched a little bit of the Memphis game. I watched a little bit of where was that bowl? Boca Raton?
Yes.
Yeah. I watched a little bit of that game, and I believe it was Florida Atlantic that they played.
Yes.
But Florida Atlantic had its shot against the Tigers, but the Tigers pulled away in fashion and won that game at ease.
Well, did you happen to watch any of the games on Saturday with our good friend Tom Luganbill on the call? Did you happen to watch Louisiana versus Texas San Antonio?
I watched maybe about 10 minutes of that game. We did a lot of traveling over the holiday.
Yes.
And I was up and going, and so I wasn't at my house, and so I was at the disposal of others, but and their lack of TV preferences. But I got to watch a little bit of that. I don't know who won though. Who won that game?
Louisiana actually came from behind to win that ball game by a final of 31-24. Louisiana has now appeared in 3 straight bowl games and 8 out of the last 10 years. So that is a dominant program down there that Billy Napier has built down there at Louisiana.
Yeah, Hudspeth, who was coaching there before, took the Raging Cajuns to their first ever bowl game.
Yes.
And then did it several years in a row and became the highest paid coach in the Sun Belt there for a while. And then of course, they made a change. And then shortly after, Billy Napier's coming in and kind of taking this program to the next level. So, the Raging Cajuns, I've always wondered why that program has never been succeeding at a high level, because there's so much talent in that state.
Yes.
You're close to Texas. You're close to Mississippi. Both states produce plenty of NFL talent. So does Louisiana. So Louisiana and Mississippi go back and forth of having the most NFL players per capita than any other state. And so I was always amazed why schools like La Tech, even Tulane, I was like, why don't these guys be consistent enough to have a good program? Because there's so much talent there.
And now let's Now let's go to the game that you were actually talking about, the Liberty Coastal Carolina game, and that game was an exciting one to say the least.
Yeah, I was taking a drink of water here.
I got you. I'm sorry. I just now saw that, but that was an exciting game.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
You know,
very exciting game. You know, Owen, I see your question there, and it's very simple, Owen. Billy Napier has been offered plenty of jobs. He was offered Ole Miss. He was offered Mississippi State. I believe Arkansas would have hired him in a heartbeat. You know, I think he was in the running at South Carolina, and they decided to go with Shane. I think that he was in the running at Auburn and decided to take his name out of the hat because of the situation that it is. But I think Billy Napier is holding out for a big-time college football job. And I think he knows that he can run the Sun Belt. He can do what he wants to in that conference. And I think he's going to be successful for years to come. And I think he might be waiting for LSU to pop open. I don't think that he is too concerned of taking over a mid-tier SEC program. I think he is waiting for a top-tier SEC program to make life a whole lot easier. So I absolutely think that Billy Napier will be in the SEC. I just think it's going to be another year or two before we see.
And as you can see there on the highlights, obviously, you know, Liberty blocked the field goal there for Coastal Carolina. And there you can see Malik Willis, I think it is, the one doing the Snow Angels. And then, of course, there is Coach Freeze holding up the trophy there as they are back-to-back Cure Bowl champions, the Liberty Flames. And this was their first win over a ranked opponent in school history.
Good for them. Great for them. You know, I was looking at some of these bowl games. I was doing this 2 nights ago before I went to bed, and I was looking at what has canceled all the bowl, because, you know, sometimes they take these teams and they have they let 2 players play a PlayStation game, or they let the teams have a bowling contest between the 2. They, you know, these bowl games do some fun stuff. They do karaoke. They do all kinds of stuff, and when they get both teams together. And I was kind of reading on some of the bowl games of how they canceled so much of this fun stuff out for the players. And yeah, you get to play the game, but, you know, looking at the Cure Bowl right there, it's in Orlando. I mean, do they get to take them to Disney? Do they get to take them to somewhere? Universal, anywhere? I mean, I just wonder of what things they didn't get to do rather than a typical bowl season that they do get to do. So, yeah, I feel for the players. I do.
Yes.
You worked hard all year. You probably worked harder this year than you did any other year, and had to have more discipline off the field to make sure you play so you can pass all the COVID tests. But it's just crazy to see this 2020 season. I am ready for this to be over, Stephen.
I agree with that. Well, what are your thoughts about Liberty and them moving forward with Hugh Freeze? Do you think he's safe there, or do you think that he gets another job and goes elsewhere?
You know, I didn't know this until Peter Burns on the show told me, and I started doing my own research on it. I didn't know how much money Liberty has. Liberty is loaded. Liberty has some deep, deep pockets. I don't see Liberty. Liberty will fight to keep Hugh Freeze for a very long time. Excuse me. Hugh's not going to stay there forever. We all know that. Football coaches don't stay forever. Yes, Alabama fans, Nick Saban's not going to stay forever. But, you know, it's going to be a situation where these guys, there will be teams that come after Hugh Freeze. They're not going to be able to keep him forever. But I think Hugh Freeze is very safe at Liberty for however long he wants to stay there. And I wouldn't be shocked if he's there past 2022, if not 2023.
Yeah, that would be awesome, or at least until that Tennessee job comes up, because everybody thinks that he wants that Tennessee job.
Yeah, and I'll say this about the Tennessee job, Stephen, and Tennessee fans you probably want to turn away. That's not a good job anymore. It's not. And with NCAA coming in and the violations hanging over the school's head, and it looks like sanctions are coming for Tennessee. And usually you get sanctions when you're a really good team cheating in recruiting. And keep getting your tail kicked every year, finishing in the bottom half of a weak SEC East. I mean, it's not a good gig. Tennessee used to be a premier program. It's not. And there's a lot of schools around the country that used to be premier jobs that they're not anymore.
Right.
And so with that being said, I think Tennessee would be fortunate and extremely lucky if they had a guy like Hugh Freeze. I know Hugh says that that's his dream job. We've all heard the story about his honeymoon and breaking into the stadium with his wife, and we've heard that story. But I don't know if Tennessee's a good gig anymore. I mean, it's the NCAA's coming, recruiting restrictions and scholarship reductions are going to happen, and you're not winning football games. And guess what? Georgia's getting stronger. South Carolina's about to rebuild. Kentucky is steadily getting better. Everywhere in the East, to the exception of Nashville, and Nashville's trying to get better as we speak, and with Vanderbilt. So everywhere you look, only people are getting stronger, and Tennessee is continuing to go the opposite way.
Okay, here is a fun little trivia thing while we wait on our next guest. Which national power does Alabama not have a good winning record against?
South Central Louisiana State University Mud Dogs. I don't know.
The team they play in the semifinals. Notre Dame has beaten Alabama 5 times, while Alabama has only beaten them twice.
Is that just bowl games or is that overall?
Overall.
Wow. So I have seen the 2 victories over Notre Dame, and if I'm not mistaken, they're both by Nick Saban, correct?
No. One of them was back in I believe it was the 80s when they played in Birmingham.
Okay. I thought Saban had a regular season game, like one of those kickoff classic games a couple of years ago against Notre Dame.
No.
And then, of course, the national championship game, that was a joke. We all knew it was going to be a joke. We knew that game was going to be a blowout. Interesting.
Now, there are 2 games that Alabama fans are really mad about. There was one in 73 and then 75 that cost Alabama back-to-back national championships because Notre Dame went in there and beat them. One was in the Sugar Bowl, one was in the Orange Bowl, and man, I got to tell you what, I've got highlights of both of them, and we're going to play them a little bit later on when we have Cecil Hurt on the show.
I usually have sympathy for people and fan bases, but boo freaking who, Alabama. If you're still crying over a game that happened almost 50 years ago, you're a loser. No one has any sympathy for Alabama, and why should they? Zero. And even if Alabama loses to Notre Dame, which is not going to happen, but even if they did, no one cares. No one's going to have any sympathy for Nick Saban in Alabama. Why should they? So, but with that being said, Alabama's going to win this game against Notre Dame. They're going to win big time.
Yes. So, but what are your thoughts on it, though, overall?
As far as the rivalry?
No, the game Saturday.
Oh, man. Hey.
I mean, Friday. Sorry, Friday.
Just like I've said many times before, if Notre Dame doesn't win the coin toss, they're not going to win anything else the rest of the day. Stephen, I think we mentioned this on the show. Has a number 4 ever beaten a number 1?
No.
I was wondering if like a 1-loss Bama team slid in as a number 4 and called an undefeated USC. I'm making something up because I'm not able to research it right now in front of me. But I keep wondering. I was like, if no number 4 has ever beaten a number 1, I mean, why do we even hype this game? It's boring. This is why you do not expand the playoff. number 4, number 1, it's a boring game every year. It's a blowout. The fourth place team has no right to a national championship. Why are we even playing this game? It's a snooze fest every year. It makes no sense whatsoever.
Did you see the last comment?
And so, thanks, Richard. And so, I'm always an SEC guy. I am. I always will be. I always have been, always will be. But again, it's kind of like, does anybody ever have sympathy for the New York Yankees? No. Does anyone have sympathy for the Lakers? No. Does anyone have sympathy for Tiger Woods when he loses? No. No one has sympathy for Alabama either. And that's part of being the best program around. Alabama truly is that. This is one of the best teams ever.
Yes.
And I really do think, I will say this, Stephen, I really do think this is Nick Saban's best team ever. If you just look at that offensive line, I know a lot of people don't, but even if you don't look at the offensive line, just look at the All-American honors that were passed out this week. How many guys from that offensive line made first, second, or third team? The entire line, I think. I mean, it's so impressive of what Alabama's doing right now. I mean, you have a big-time quarterback. You had 2 super big-time. How many times do you lose your best receiver and you get better, and the guy that was number 2 is up for the Heisman?
Yes.
And hey, if you had a Heisman vote, Stephen, mine's for Devontae Smith. Who is yours for?
Yeah, it's Devontae or Mac Jones. But also don't forget about Trevor Lawrence there.
No, Trevor's a phenomenal player. He's had a phenomenal season. But, if I'm looking at the best player in college football, I think it's just hands down Devontae. He returns kicks. He's a threat every time his hands are on the ball. Whether he's running out of the backfield with it, catching it downfield, or returning a kick. He is a threat to score every single time.
Yes. And what about Najee?
Who doesn't want Najee on their team?
Dude.
This is not a bash on Najee at all. He's clearly I can't speak for him being the best running back in the nation, but he is easily by far the best running back in the SEC.
Yes.
And I can hear some people, the Bama haters out there right now. I can hear the Bama haters right now saying, well, you could take any running back and run behind that offensive line. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, Cole Kubrick said it on our show. Cole Kubrick said it on our show that he could run for 40 yards behind that line in the shape he's in now.
But we couldn't.
Yeah, he said we couldn't do it. He could, but we couldn't. Yeah, that's the crazy thing about Alabama. I think Najee is phenomenal. I think Najee has a wonderful career ahead of him in the NFL.
Yes.
He is by far the absolute best running back in the SEC, hands down. I don't think there's anyone better than him. I don't think Isaiah Spiller deserves to be in the same conversation with Najee Harris. And Isaiah Spiller is a phenomenal running back with a great NFL future.
Yes.
It's hands down. Najee's the best running back in the SEC, hands down.
All right. Well, are you ready to bring on our next guest?
I've been waiting, brother.
Well, earlier we had Mr. Tony Barnhart on the show, Mr. College Football. I've got a question for you, Heath, because, we'd like to have a little fun here. Should we give Cecil Hurd the title of Mr. Alabama Football?
I think we should give Cecil the title of the absolute best beat writer that ever lived.
Yes. So without further ado, here is our good friend and once again the writer for the Tuscaloosa News, ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only Cecil Hurd. Cecil, how are you doing today, sir?
Doing good. I've been outdoors, as you can tell by the hat.
Yes. So first off, let me just ask, did you have a good holiday and Christmas?
I did. We were working for the most part.
Yes.
Alabama played right up until the Saturday before Christmas, and then obviously have to prepare for the college football playoff. So it was a short
Yes.
week, but it was Stayed at home, observed the protocols, but it was fine.
Cecil, did the Alabama football team get to go home for the holidays, or did they stay there in Tuscaloosa?
The players who were close enough, the players who were near Tuscaloosa could drive, essentially, they got to stay home. Got to go home. Najee Harris, who had to fly to San Francisco, he stayed in Tuscaloosa.
Gotcha. Okay.
Well, in your opinion, though, talking about number 3 and number 4 in the playoffs, do you feel like that the committee got it right, or should they have put somebody else in there?
Well, as a beat writer that covers the Southeastern Conference, I would like to have seen Texas A&M,
Right,
which had a great year, get a chance. I think this is probably, if you polled nationwide, these were probably the teams that most of the country wanted to see. These are the big name, big television teams. I had written in March when it was first obvious that there would have to be changes,
yes,
that the SEC should go to an all-conference schedule, and that I thought it would be best to have an 8-team playoff, at least for this year, at least as an experimental thing. But it didn't happen, so that's the way it goes sometimes.
right.
Cecil, we had Tom Lugabill on last week, and we mentioned this with Tony Barnhart when he was on earlier. Tom Lugabill mentioned that we should increase the playoffs to 6 total teams, and the first 2 teams get a bye, and then we don't have all this discussion and fight of who should be in, who should be out. And so Cincinnati and A&M are now playing Notre Dame and Ohio State. Do you like that system? Do you think that would work?
Well, would Cincinnati have been the team? Would you have designated that it had to be a group of 5? Because by the final standings, now whether the committee would have had the exact same pairings, it would have been Oklahoma and Texas A&M. So, again, for this year, I would like to have seen more teams because there was a limited pool of games, and it might be more representative. But you're going to have to get probably to at least 8 teams to get people where they want to be, which is getting one of these group of 5 teams, whether you Cincinnati or Coastal Carolina or Louisiana or whoever it was, BYU. I would like to have seen Alabama play BYU, although I don't think BYU could beat Alabama, but I would like to have seen it.
Yeah. To see Zach Wilson and BYU take on an SEC defense, I think a lot of TV sets would be eagerly watched to see that matchup. I don't think it turns out favorably for the Cougars, but I think a lot of people would want to watch that game, including some NFL execs and scouts.
I will say this, the only chance ultimately that a group of 5 team is going to have against one of the elite Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State Power 5 teams is if they have that kind of quarterback, a quarterback who can make a difference in a game like Zach Wilson. So it would have been fascinating to see, but I don't know that it would have changed the finals if BYU is one of your semifinal teams.
Gotcha. So we talked with Tony earlier. The Final Four. If you were voting for your Final Four, is it the 4 best teams or the 4 deserving teams that should make the playoff?
Well, there's some. In some ways, those 2 criteria are intertwined. I'm not sure. Had Clemson lost to Notre Dame again in the ACC championship, that they could still very well be one of the 4 best teams, but I wouldn't see how you could lose to a team twice and then expect to get a 3rd shot in the playoffs. So I guess from that logic, it's the most deserving teams. But you're going to have to be a pretty good team to be deserving.
Right. A lot of people thought that Ohio State wasn't deserving because they didn't play enough games. A lot of people thought A&M was deserving. A lot of people thought Cincinnati was deserving. Again, I think this year has been a collision course with Clemson and Bama all year long. From the get-go, it's been that. And I believe that's what we're going to get after the weekend. I don't really think that the minor side effects of who's getting in, because I don't think Cincinnati could make noise. I don't think A&M could make noise in this playoff. I think it's always going to be Clemson and Bama, and I think that's what we're going to get.
Yeah, for a team to if you're saying somebody outside, I know Ohio State's capable of doing it. I don't know if Notre Dame is, but for a team to beat Alabama and then Clemson in order in 2 consecutive weeks, I don't know who else could do that, really.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of Notre Dame, what's their strong point and what's the only chance they got to make this game competitive with Bama?
Well, big offensive line, run a controlled offense that tries to win time of possession, limit the other team's offensive possessions, and that's what they've got to do. If Alabama gets 6 possessions in the first half and scores 5 touchdowns, the game's over at halftime because Notre Dame's not going to be explosive enough to come back. So they've got to get a stop either with their defense or via turnovers. They couldn't do that against Clemson and couldn't come back in the second game. In the first game, they did. So, if Alabama turns the ball over, if Alabama can't stay on the field on third downs and give themselves a chance, because Alabama is going to make some explosive plays. That's just, you're not going to prevent that from happening. But Notre Dame would want this game in the 20s, 28-27. Alabama would want it in the 40s, 45 to 30, something like that. So Notre Dame's got to control the tempo. They certainly can't waste, if not scoring opportunities, at least the opportunity to convert a couple of third downs and have, minute and a half possessions. They'll run the ball, which will expand that a little bit. But, if Notre Dame is down in time of possession, if they're down in red zone efficiency, then they're really not going to be able to keep up. Getting a lead would help them. First quarter is important. If they look up and they're down 14-0, they're already having to make some decisions about what they're going to do offensively.
That actually was going to bring me to my next question. I think if Bama gets up by 17 points or more, it's basically over for Notre Dame. I don't see them coming back from that.
I don't see them getting enough stops to allow their offense to.
Right.
You're not if when you say up 17, say it's 31-14, but are you gonna hold Alabama at 31 is the biggest question.
Right. And on the reverse side of that, which I don't think we have anything to worry about, what kind of lead does Notre Dame have to have where Bama is like, there's not a chance here? Because even if it was at 28, I still think Bama has a chance to get back in it.
Alabama's going to feel like they certainly, if it's 28's pretty steep because you have to get 3 stops and score 4 touchdowns. But certainly at 14, they're not going to feel out of it. Say it's 21 going into the fourth quarter. There would be reasons why they got down 21. They'd have to start getting some stops. Notre Dame would really try to grind out time at that point. So Alabama would have to score really quickly, but they do have the capability to score quickly.
Yes, they do.
Cecil, real quick, I want to pick your brain about this because I know that you've followed Alabama for a long time. Tell us why this Notre Dame-Alabama rivalry is so bitter towards Alabama fans.
Well, I think it's a combination of things that Notre Dame certainly has a tremendous tradition, and I think they always felt like Notre Dame was the northern team that people rallied around. There are others. There were Michigan and Ohio State and so forth, but generally speaking, it was Notre Dame. And there were so many years where they didn't play. Notre Dame didn't play in bowl games. They didn't schedule games against each other. The 1966 Associated Press poll, which Notre Dame won despite having a tie against Michigan State, certainly exacerbated some of those feelings. And then the 1973 game, which I think for a lot of Alabama fans was, okay, this is our chance. This is the chance that Alabama has to prove it. And Notre Dame won in dramatic fashion, throwing out of their end zone to put the game away in the final 3 minutes. And just a really frustrating game for Alabama fans, who then lost again in 74. So I think that's just been a long-standing historic thing, more so really than the games that have been played, although Notre Dame does hold hold the advantage in that. But Alabama's had a couple of memorable wins against Notre Dame. Now that I guess that eases it. I don't know that younger fans who really focus on the 2012 championship game understand all that. It goes back now 50, 60 years.
Cecil, we were talking to Tony earlier before you came on, and Tony Barnhart shared a couple of fun stories about Nick Saban and showed the more human aspect of him. But what's a story that you like telling about Coach Nick Saban?
Well, it's funny because you don't do a lot of socializing. It's not my job to be his best friend. It's not his job to be my best friend.
Right.
But he does love winning. He can be personable, but he is not a waster of time. If you get in there and he doesn't want to discuss your day very long. So, we've had some 15-second encounters because he's ready to move on to something else. So, it's not a matter of having a lot of great stories or a lot of things that I can tell, because a lot of it's off the record.
Yes.
But he's been fine to work with. It's just not that's not the kind of relationship that you really that happens. I think it happened a lot more in previous days when the head coach was close to whoever the sports editor was, and if it was Ace Cleveland, at Southern Miss, being close with the sports editor in Jackson as the SID, you'd have relationships like that. But that's not necessarily what we're here for.
Yes. Well, let's turn to another sport real quick. Obviously, tonight, Alabama hosts Ole Miss in basketball at Coleman. What can we expect about the Alabama-Ole Miss matchup tonight?
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. Ole Miss is off to a good start, although I would say that they're
we lost his audio.
Uh-oh.
That's been a little bit hard to judge. Excuse me. The one quality team that they played that they did not win was Dayton. And,
yes.
Alabama's similar. Their best win is probably Providence. I don't know if Ole Miss has a win that good. On the other hand, Ole Miss has won all their other games.
Yes.
It's a toss-up game to me. Ole Miss is experienced. Kermit's a good coach. Alabama's still trying to kind of find its way.
Yes. Well, Heath, do you have anything else?
Yeah, Cecil, with all the craziness going on, who is going to be the starting running back for Alabama next year, and who are some wide receivers that we can look forward to seeing?
Yeah, I didn't get to hear that, Heath. But again, it's been great to be on with y'all, and look forward to doing it again.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
So we had some audio technical issues there. So
I was trying to get a jump on my fantasy football team.
Yeah. So, but we want to thank Cecil for coming on.
Absolutely. Stephen, I know we've already talked about it in the show, but this Bama Notre Dame game, I think, is just one of the most boring playoff games we have ever seen.
Yes.
I am not excited about it in the slightest. I just think it's going to be Bama early, often, all day, all night, and that's it. I just don't see Notre Dame making any kind of fight in this game.
Yes. All right, man. Well, are you ready to pick a few games?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, we are going to start with a game that is actually going to start here in about 2 hours from now. It is going to be Tuesday at 4:30 on ESPN. It is Oklahoma State, as you can see, the Cowgirl down there, and of course Duck down there. So it is going to be Oklahoma State taking on Miami in the Cheez-It Bowl.
When's the last time you had some Cheez-Its, Stephen?
It's been a long time, man.
I don't know. This game, usually ball games they're kind of a little rusty the first half, first quarter, and they're kind of boring. But we really haven't seen that this year, and I think that's because we've had such a long regular season play into that. So, with that being said, I really think Oklahoma State's going to jump out early, but I like Miami to come back, and I think Miami might do some heavy damage in the second half.
I'm actually going with this team right here because Chuba Hubbard for Oklahoma State is not playing. He has opted out. So I'm actually going with Miami all the way in this game. And who knows, going into next year, it could very well be that Mike Gundy could be getting a little warm there on the hot seat because, they have not fared well with him against Oklahoma. And now they've lost a couple of other games as well.
Yeah. I don't know much about that situation. I know T. Boone Pickens was a fan of Gundy. From what I know, and basically gave Gundy anything and everything he wanted. But yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. And but I really think Miami in the second half really takes care of a big thing. Hey, bring me up. We'll you it together. Yeah,
we're both going with the U. Okay, all right. And by the way, Las Vegas has Miami favored, and the Football Power Index gives Oklahoma State the edge there.
Good game.
Yeah.
And Tony, yes, I do know that T-Boone's no longer with us. That's why I made the statement that T-Boone gave him everything, but T-Boone's not there to protect him anymore.
Yes.
And so that's why he might be on the hot seat.
Next up is going to be, now this, usually I got to be honest with you, man. I always like the late game matchups. And usually in a normal bowl season, you would have the Holiday Bowl kickoff at 9:15 local time. And they wouldn't get over till about midnight. Well, unfortunately, with all the bowl games being canceled, there was only one late game this year, and it is tonight. It is going to be an old Big 12 rivalry between the Longhorns of Texas versus the Buffaloes of Colorado.
Yeah, I've never been impressed with Colorado. They had a run briefly back in the 80s and early 90s, and but yeah, Colorado I'm just not impressed with. Sadly, I'm not impressed with Texas either. This might be a really boring game, Stephen. It really might be a super boring game. But you know what? I will watch it, and I think Texas wins. But we'll find out. Being the underdog guy, I'll be pulling for Colorado. But yeah, this game here, I don't know. But here's the more important thing to think about, Stephen, is if Texas does lose this game, is Tom Herman still the coach come 2021?
Man, I don't know. That's going to be rather interesting there because they gave him the vote of confidence around Thanksgiving this year.
Yeah, we've seen that vote of confidence from universities, and the next week they're fired.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm not buying it.
All right, next up is going to be a game that we actually talked with Cecil Hurt about. And first off, we are going to start. Give me just a second. It is actually going to be round ball tonight, and we're going to start. It's going to be 5-1 Ole Miss at 5-3 Alabama, 8 o'clock on the SEC Network. Alabama is a 2-point favorite, but the Basketball Power Index gives the favor to Ole Miss. Who do you like, man? Ole Miss or Bama at home?
I am a massive Kermit Davis fan. Massive. I followed him at MTSU. He has relatives here in DeSoto County that are family friends where I live here in Northwest Mississippi. I've been following Kermit Davis for a long time. His teams are only getting better at Ole Miss. I think Alabama is still trying to figure some things out over there.
Yes.
I don't like how Alabama started things off the season, but I think Kermit gets a win on the road tonight there in Coleman Coliseum.
I agree with that. I'm actually going with the Ole Miss Rebels as well. And, man, I tell you what, if it hadn't been for that loss to Memphis, I mean, Ole Miss could be ranked and undefeated right now.
Hey, did you see Richard's comment? His Snoochie Boochie comment?
No. Gundy Mullet wins MVP.
Oh, no. The second comment under Kermit Davis is greater than Andy Kennedy. Yes, Kermit Davis is better than Andy Kennedy, Tony. But, yeah, Colorado is going to need to slip some marijuana edibles in Texas Gatorade to win.
Yes.
Richard, you win my Snoochie Boochie award of the day.
And by the way, this guy is a local comedian here in Tuscaloosa.
Wow, look at there.
Yep, so I had to give him a plug out there. I have not, because of COVID, I've not been able to go see one of his shows. But as soon as COVID and everything settles back down, I definitely want to go see some of his comedy acts.
I didn't think I'd be making a Kevin Smith, Jay and Silent Bob reference on the show today. Yes, Richard, you do win an award.
Yes. All right, so next.
It's a major award. Brain powers.
Yes. All right, man. Next up is going to be another basketball game. Now, obviously, we just got through talking about the Alabama A&M game. Well, this one is going to be before it, and it is going to be 5-1 Texas A&M at 5-1 LSU.
Wow. 2 5-1 teams battling it out.
Yes.
You know, LSU is that's got to be the most dramatic basketball program in the SEC right now.
Yes.
Will Wade's got all kinds of craziness surrounding him at all times. A&M used to be such a proud, extremely proud basketball program. Good now, yes, but I don't know if that pride is still there with Aggie basketball. But, Will Wade's all over the place, but he usually wins. He drops some games that he shouldn't. But and tonight might be one of those cases. But if you played it by the book, I just like LSU, and I like LSU kind of pulling away a double-digit win.
I'm actually going with the Aggies gig 'em.
Wow, there you go.
So, all right, next up, and the final game for today is one that we're actually now, real quick, are we doing the show tomorrow at 1 o'clock again?
As far as I know, yeah. Hey, let me check my schedule. Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure. Okay, because in the morning, we actually have one football game that kicks off at 11 a.m., and unfortunately, I will not be able to watch this game because I will be doing prep for this show, but it's going to be the Duke Mayo Bowl. Now, this used to be the Belk Bowl, but Belk dropped the sponsor for some reason, so Duke Mayo picked it up. It is going to be 4-4 Wake Forest versus 3-3 Wisconsin. Wisconsin is a 7.5-point favorite, and they have a 72% chance to win this game.
I guess we're not going to see the commercial during the game. It's not a sandwich. You can't call it a sandwich. It's not a sandwich unless it gets some Miracle Whip.
Yes.
Yeah, the Duke Mayo Bowl. That sounds like a bad video game character, Duke Mayo. Yeah. Wake Forest, they kind of hit a slump there. They're kind of bouncing back. Wisconsin, been inconsistent. But I think Wisconsin wins very big in this game. Wake Forest kind of got the regional love there, but I just see Wisconsin in a big, big way.
Yes, I agree with that. I'm going with Wisconsin, because they've got some momentum now because they won the Axe against Minnesota a few weeks ago. So,
Paul Bunyan's axe.
yes.
How big is
So,
that thing, Stephen?
huge. So, and by the way, that is not the only game tomorrow. There is this game as well, but we will actually pick that game tomorrow. So, yeah, that's going to be a big one, and so that's going to be a really good game tomorrow. All right, so without further ado, I would like to finish the show with this. Okay, so we did not get to talk Christmas traditions, Christmas anything last week because we had a full show with Tom Luganville on, and then the other the best of show. So my question to you is this: what is, in your opinion, the most overrated Christmas song ever?
Wow, overrated.
Yes.
It has to be the 12 Days of Christmas.
Wow.
Because it's so long. It's, I mean, why do we need milkmaids and 5 golden rings? And why is it a partridge in a pear tree? Why can't it be any other tree? Why can't it be any other bird?
Yes.
I mean, so many questions of why. Fun song for kids. I think over the age of like 18, that song should be banned.
Yes. So you're going there. I'm actually going with a different one. I'm actually going.
Hey, on the 12 Redneck Days of Christmas?
No. No. I'm actually going with a song that's not really about Christmas, but it is overplayed and everybody's done it, and I'm sick of it. Baby, It's Cold Outside. Man, they play that song.
Yeah. Don't hate on that, Steven.
You actually like that song?
Yeah, I love that song, man. Any song that's about storytelling I like. That's a great storytelling song.
Man, everybody just play it out year in and year out, and I'm sick of it.
Wow. Of all the songs, Steven, you going to pick that one?
Yeah.
Wow.
I know. Maybe I'm a humbug. I don't know, but I really just don't like that song.
Hey, I'll give a free shout out. 98.9 KISS FM here in Memphis, Tennessee is still playing Christmas songs. They will play it till the 1st.
Dude, man, that's awesome.
So yeah, if you're going through withdrawals, you need a little Christmas love. 98.9 here in Memphis, still playing it.
Man, that's pretty cool. Here in Tuscaloosa, we had 3 stations that played it. 2 in actually 2 here, and then 1 in Birmingham. And they cut it off right there at midnight on Christmas night, and went back to playing their regular hits. So, yeah.
Wow.
It sucked. But
let's talk more rock.
I will say this, though. I have made it a Christmas tradition that I always go to the radio and listen to the last Christmas song that they play every year. And this one, it was the White Christmas by the Drifters was one of them. Linus and Lucy was another one. And then the third station ended Christmas 2020 with Christmas in Dixie.
Wow. Look at you, Stephen. You got Buddy the Elf.
Yeah. So anyway. All right. Well, real quick, top 5 Christmas movies all time.
Top 5?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Are we putting regulations on it?
No.
Okay. Because, Lethal Weapon is a Christmas movie.
Right.
It is. Die Hard is a Christmas movie. I don't know. Let's see. I'll make them fast. Christmas Vacation, barely gets my number one spot. Number two is Christmas Story. I love Christmas Story.
Right.
I think Elf is number three. I'm gonna try to keep out the Lethal Weapon and the Die Hard, just for the haters out there.
Right.
Although I absolutely love those movies. Let's go with. You know what? I'll be. Gosh. You know, my kid loves watching Home Alone, and I always laugh when they laugh. So I'll throw Home Alone in there at number 4. And I'll keep it local here with the guy that used to live here in South Haven, Mississippi, and John Grisham. I'm skipping Christmas, number 5.
That's a good list. All right, number 5 for me, and this is just because I've got to place it somewhere. It's Christmas with the Cranks with Tim Allen.
Oh, yeah, that's skipping Christmas. That's actually the same. The book is skipping Christmas. The movie was Christmas with the Cranks.
Gotcha. Okay.
So we'll both get number 5. Our number 5s are both the same.
That's a funny movie.
It is.
Okay. Another one is give me for number 4. Give me probably the Santa Claus 2. That was a really good movie.
Wow, okay.
Number 3 is the Santa Claus 1. Number 2 for me is Christmas Vacation. And number 1, would you like for me to do my best impression of it?
Why not? Let's do it.
I want the Turbo Man doll now. Jingle all the way for me.
Yeah, you being an Arnold fan.
With Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sinbad, man, how can you not pick that movie as number 1?
And so I like it. I don't hate on it. But wow, okay.
I want the Turbo Man doll now.
Arnold. I used to have that Time Life magazine in my apartment when he was running for governor, and AHRNALD Arnold.
Yes.
Yeah, the governor.
Yep. So, man, I tell you what. All right, man. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of the Stingray Show.
I got to ask you this, Stephen. What's the worst Christmas gift you ever got? You don't have to say who gave it to you. What's the worst Christmas gift you ever got?
Yeah. Wow. I don't have a clue. What about you?
When I was 14, I had an aunt, loved her, still do. She's still with us. I had an aunt give me a brass yo-yo. It was like a fancy yo-yo, but it was made of brass. I was like, what in the world is this? I'm 14 years old. What am I going to do with a brass yo-yo?
Worst Christmas present was probably when I got socks or clothes for Christmas. Now, obviously, I like it. Just something. But when you're young and you get clothes, you're like, really? Come on.
Yeah. That's crazy. What was your favorite Christmas gift?
Probably the go-kart that I got when I turned 12 or 13.
That's solid, dude. That's real solid. Mine was an Atari 2600.
Right.
That's probably like first grade, maybe second grade.
Either the go-kart or one of my all-time favorite systems out there. Nothing can even come close to it, and I no longer have it, but I wished I did. The Nintendo 64.
Oh, yeah. Dude, I used to play WCW wrestling like nonstop on the 64. I could still whoop anybody today in that game. I hadn't played it in decades. I could still whoop anybody in it.
Did you happen to play James Bond 007 GoldenEye?
I think I'm the only person on earth that did not like that game.
Man, that was my all-time favorite game growing up. That and Mario Kart 64. Now, both of those.
Oh, man. I would wear you out on some Mario Kart, Steve.
Yes.
I would. Rainbow Road, Koopa Troopa.
Yes.
It's over, dude.
Yep.
You Yeah, it's
and then, of course, who could forget the game WWF Friday Night SmackDown? Dude, that game was awesome with Stone Cold on the front of it. That was awesome.
Yeah. What was the other WWF game they had on there? I can't remember. I know you'd go all the way through it, and then once you win WrestleMania, you hear HBK's music, and HBK would come out, and that would unlock the character. But yeah, fun times. That was such a long time ago, man.
Do you still play any video games at all, or no?
You know, it's funny. Santa brought a PS4 to our house. So I played MLB The Show 20. Santa brought that game as well. And I got whooped in that game, man.
Right.
My 9-year-old son took me to town on that one. He's not good at video games, but here's an all-man statement, Steven. Here it comes. There's too many buttons these days. You know, way too many buttons.
Yes.
And I'm like, whoa. I got a control pad and 2 other knobs. Then I got these 4 buttons, and I got these 4 buttons. I'm like, what? Why do I got all these buttons? So, yeah, I was way – MLB The Show 20, can't hit. I can't hit Santa if I fell off a camel. I can't hit nothing in that game. So, yeah, it's
while we're at it real quick, I would like to, I tell you what, man, we should just have a show about entertainment, man. One show, one day where we talk about, video games, we talk about, and call it the Stingray Show. But I really feel like that would bring a lot of excitement to the show.
Maybe that should be our Fried Bologna Friday show. You bring your questions, you bring your topics, and we will answer them.
Yes.
There's a podcast I listen to, Thunder and Lightning, and they do a Wednesday show called The Rumblings. And sometimes they give a theme to it, sometimes they don't, but people ask the most random questions. And to hear those guys' responses are absolutely hilarious. If you want to hear anything kill a little time, listen to Brian Haydad and Joel T. Coleman, Thunder and Lightning, their Wednesday show called The Rumblings. And wherever you get your podcast, look it up and listen to it. Absolutely hilarious questions asked on that show.
And I got to be honest with you, man. I think another show that we need to do in the spring or summer on a slow day is us just going back, you and I, and just spitballing between one another about most memorable games that we have actually been to in person.
Oh, yeah.
That would be something awesome, man.
After Omaha this summer, if we get Omaha, we better get Omaha.
Yes.
In the College World Series. After Omaha, let's make that like the second show after Omaha. We'll unpack Omaha afterwards, and then we'll talk about all the fun stuff. Because usually you're about 100 days out, probably just under 100. You're probably about 85 to 90 days out after Omaha's finished.
Yes.
And then, we can have some fun with that.
Well, man, that's going to do it for this edition of the Stingray Show. We hope everybody has enjoyed it, and hopefully we can do it again tomorrow. We will be back here to talk about the other playoff game between Clemson and Clemson and Ohio State. Hopefully nobody wants to see Clemson Notre Dame again. Without further ado, we hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your evening, and do not forget, coming up here in just a little bit, we actually have a college football game tonight, and also do not forget about this game as well tonight if you're an Alabama fan. So enjoy the rest of your day. Have a great college football evening, and we will see you right back here tomorrow on the Stingray Show. God bless.
See ya.
The Dogs and Stingray are coming for you.
This is Stephen Ray, a.k.a. Stingray, coming to you live from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Good afternoon, Mr. Feinbaum. Stingray here, and I'm about to shoot the bull with you like all the Auburn students do down at Auburn.
Worst defense ever!
So So without further ado, here is the biggest. Alabama going for the field goal. The kick is up. It is away. It is no good. Chris Davis bringing it out of the end zone. Oh, he's got blockers. Chris Davis up the sideline. Here he goes.
Here we go, guys. Dobbs back to pass, launching the ball. Jennings, he's got it. Jennings, he's got it. Touchdown, Tennessee. They shocked the Dogs in Sanford Stadium. Are you kidding me? My God Almighty, what an epic way for the Tennessee-Georgia rivalry to